What keeps you awake at night?
Sea levels are rising globally.
Fears fueled by horror stories.
Among the worst flu season in a decade, and it hasn't peaked yet.
We all know the atomic bomb is very dangerous.
Another series of deadly terror attacks.
I don't want to be blamed if you cannot get to sleep tonight.
So I'm starting to make friends at UCLA, which is dope.
I'm so proud of you.
And when I make friends, for the listeners who don't know this, I have a photo of me photoshopped as Joseph Stalin holding a baby, right? And whenever I get to know someone well enough, I say, okay, I have a photo I'd like you to use for my contact information. And they're like, okay. And I send them that photo, right? And, it always gets a laugh. And they're like, ha, 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 oh my God, that's so weird. Right. So I met a friend of mine, and I'm not going to use his name. He listens to it. He knows exactly who he is. And, I sent him that picture, and he goes, I think he says something like, no way. And he immediately sends me a picture of him photoshopped as Stalin. No! Now, I know that he didn't make this, that moment. He made it in advance, because to make the photo, he grew out his mustache for, 3 weeks, took a picture of it, and photoshopped it, and had it saved to his phone. Now, in the 4 years that I've had that photo on my phone and done that bit, I have never had this happen to me, where I got, repeat no one ever has Stalined me. I've never been Stalined back, and it was
Stalined.
I don't know. It was really overwhelming. I didn't really know how to respond. He's now Stalin mate in my phone. We're Stalin mates.
I love it.
That's literally never fucking happened to me before.
You guys are
That's
soulmates.
Insane.
That's insane.
We're Stalin mates.
You're Stalin
please.
mates. I'm so sorry.
I have
you just
a boyfriend.
said it. I have a boyfriend.
You can still have soulmates that aren't romantic.
That's true.
Relationships.
That's true.
No,
we're all soulmates.
Not in my world, buddy.
Olivia.
I think of you as my soulmate, Olivia.
But no, and it's so funny because after that happened the next day, so this just solidified the Stalin mateness. All of my teachers use blackboards, which is insane to me because I thought we lived in 2018, not 1918. But
right.
One of
it's
my
a common
teachers.
Mistake.
I know. Every day I forget. My teacher comes in and he never buys his own chalk because mood. What? And he always comes in, and the other day he was literally feeling at the top ledge of the chalkboard to see if somebody had hid chalk there, and he found one small piece and used that the entire class because he didn't want to bring chalk. So I have purchased multicolored chalk that I'm going to remove all the white chalks and only put multicolored chalk on as a bit. And so I say this in a study group, and my Stalin mate goes, "Are you joking me right now?" And I went, "What? What's wrong?" He goes, "I just bought $10 worth of multicolored chalk on Amazon last night." No! What the fuck? So
you're the same person. It goes beyond Stalin mates. You're the same person.
Who is this man?
He was created in a lab to make your life hell by being you. Exactly you.
So, shout out to my Stalin mate. You know who you are.
Hello, Stalin mate. You're amazing.
I would also like to point out that when I said Olivia was my soulmate, she just immediately glossed over it. And
I'm not gonna go into that.
Listen,
anyway,
can we not talk about this on the podcast right now?
I don't like it when mom and mom are fighting.
Anyway, welcome to Things That Keep Me Up at Night.
Hello.
I'm Olivia.
I am Brooke.
I'm Bree.
And today we are finishing up our pandemic series, or epidemic series.
Yeah.
I had done influenza, you should check that out, and Bree has done HIV, which literally exploded our podcast, but we'll talk about that at the end. Mad respect. Don't me, okay?
Bree's being modest.
That's a good episode. Check it out.
It's real good. Yeah.
And now today we have Brooke Morris with our final episode.
Well, this is so awkward because I picked the Spanish flu and HIV.
Yeah, if you haven't listened to our mini-sode, the 1 week that we didn't confer with our third party, Brooke and I accidentally picked the same topic for a mini-sode, which is...
If someone listening at home wants to do the statistics behind how probable it is for them to pick the exact same legend. I would love to see that.
Please,
There's
make
so
that your
many.
master's thesis, please.
Perfect.
Anyway.
Yes, I'm basing my master's thesis on a podcast called Things That Keep Me Up at Night. They have 12 iTunes reviews, just so you know.
So,
I'm very excited.
I was gonna do polio forever. Like, I was planning on it for weeks, and I was like, this is great because there have been some recent cases popping up in the U.S. because people are refusing to vaccinate their kids these days, and we're losing herd immunity to polio. So, in all fairness, it's a terrifying disease, and the iron lung gives me nightmares for realsies. Holy shit.
No, fuck
but
that.
after doing a little bit of research, I realized that there was one that I think it would be interesting to go into because we were all present to witness sort of what happened. And I think that it's also important to shed a little bit of light on a situation that was pretty trivialized in the United States. And it actually made history. It was the largest pandemic of its kind. And of course, I am talking about the popular 2015 Halloween costume, the Ebola virus.
Woo!
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. Olivia was like, hey, I don't know if you've already picked one, but like the Ebola thing in 2014 was pretty interesting, and I was like, I don't know if I want to go into that. And then I did just a handful of minutes of research, and I was like, yeah, this is the one. So,
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
So-
Whew.
before we get into the outbreak of 2014, I'm going to sort of go into the biology of the virus itself and how it messes with your sweet, sweet bod. Everybody get out your notebooks because... Shut up! There's going to be a test at the end of the lecture, so... Okay, so the particular strain from the 2014 outbreak was called the Zaire Ebola virus, which is one of 5 known species of Ebola virus. So, over time, different forms of Ebola have been kind of bottlenecked into being only able to infect primates, humans, and pigs, which I guess humans are also primates, but you get it. Though the form that's contagious to pigs is a different species, that one's called the Reston virus, and I think one of us mentioned during a previous episode that there was a real bad outbreak of Reston virus in the Philippines, and it forced pig farmers to slaughter all of the potentially infected pigs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which, that caused a good old-fashioned famine. This strain, however, it affects humans and primates only, and it's called EVD. And it has a staggering fatality rate of 40 to 90%, and in this case, it was about 70%. But how does Ebola do what it do? I'm so glad you asked. So the terrifying answer is that we don't really know.
Love
Wonderful. Yeah, it's really fun. At the very least, we don't know how the virus actually attacks cells. There are other similar viruses that are known as hemorrhagic fevers, which, oh my god, isn't that the most terrifying name you've ever heard?
Yes,
Hemorrhagic
dude.
fevers? Anyway, other ones of those have been known to suppress the immune system, and it just sort of lets the virus reproduce unchecked, which is our best guess as to how Ebola do. So, we also don't know what its actual natural reservoir is, but our best guesses are rodents, primates, insects, or bats that are native to Asia and Africa. That's the best we got, but we don't know.
all right.
So, another terrifying little tidbit. This virus actually stays active and infectious after you recover, if you recover.
Fuck that.
Yeah, it's been observed to stay infectious in semen for as long as 2 months after recovery. I don't know why, I did my research and semen in particular came up, but I don't know why that's so terrifying. Don't be fucking, because you're gonna give somebody Ebola. Anyway, this sort of partially accounts for why it's so hard to treat and contain, because the virus passes from host to host by bodily fluids, and dealing with the dead is especially hazardous, and even the surface of a body remains infectious for over a week after death. So...
Don't like that. No.
Oh, and even better, there are rare instances where Ebola patients actually are asymptomatic and just carry it and spread it wherever the wind takes them. Because, of course...
I love that.
That's the worst. I think that's the scariest fucking thing for me, is the fact that people can just not know.
Yeah, and like, you don't get sick, so why would you go to the doctor? Just wherever you travel, dead bodies in your wake. Yeah, but like HIV, I think once the patient is dead, I don't think that it's still infectious.
No,
You can
it's-
correct me, Bree, if you're wrong, but I don't think that that's a thing.
No,
in
once
other
the
viruses.
patient dies, it's pretty. Yeah,
Yeah.
It doesn't live outside the body really well.
Right.
So like
No.
that's one of the things with HIV is people were like, oh my god, if I use a toilet seat, I'm gonna
Right.
get AIDS, and you're like,
Yeah,
that's
which
not
is
how any of
ridiculous.
this works, Jeremy.
Fucking
Thanks,
Jeremy.
You're ignorant. So no,
Somebody out there named
it's-
Jeremy's like, whoa.
God, what the fuck, guys?
Hey.
I left you an
I didn't
iTunes
know.
review.
Yeah. But yeah, this one is just terrifying because it just stays alive-ish. Viruses aren't really alive, but you get it. But what happens once you actually contract Ebola? Well, I'm so glad you asked.
Oh, my bad. I thought that was a statement.
Oh, okay, we can. Hey, Brooke,
Yeah.
what happens when you contract Ebola?
Oh my god, that's such a good question,
I'm
Bree.
leaving that shit in.
You better.
Yeah.
So, the incubation period is anywhere from 2 to 21 days, which is kind of a weird
Fuck,
range.
that is so long.
Yeah, so like you could feel it in a couple days after being exposed, or it could be a literal month after.
Fuck, I hate that.
Which like who knows where you are at that point? Like
Yeah.
And so so the virus just cooks in your flesh oven and you feel 100%
Okay.
totally fine. I wanted to straight face it, but I couldn't. Oh man. But yeah, before it incubates, you feel 100% fine. Once it hits you like a train. All at once, you get a fever, horrible headaches and muscle aches, and a complete loss of appetite. And that's the preliminary symptoms. That's just the first couple days. A few days after that, it causes what is known as disseminated vascular coagulation, which is every bit as horrifying as it sounds. Now, does anyone know what disseminated vascular coagulation is?
Can I?
Okay, wait, I have a
make
guess.
at
I have
it?
a
Can I
guess.
make
I
a
have a
guess?
Go for it.
Okay, wait. Say it again, because I can break it down.
Disseminated vascular coagulation.
So vascular coagulation would just be like your blood actually turns to jelly, right?
Yeah,
sure,
that's
for
what I was
sure.
gonna think, yeah.
Oh, does it have any? Okay, sorry. No, I'm alright.
Yeah,
What's the
okay.
first word before vascular?
Disseminated.
Can you use it in a sentence, please? Sorry. No, you can go
Yeah,
ahead. You can
sure.
answer the question.
Disseminated.
Ah,
Noun? Maybe adjective. It's been a while since I've done words.
yeah, I'm just gonna guess like your blood turns into goo.
You know what? That's as close as I think you guys are gonna get. It's basically the general term is marked by blood clots and hemorrhaging, but in Ebola's case specifically, it causes clots to form around your internal organs, which forces the capillaries in your internal organs to bleed into the tissue that surrounds them. Just imagine that, Phil. I'm gonna let that sit
So you're
with
just
you.
like a human bruise?
Yeah, yeah, you're bleeding internally into blood clots that have formed inside you.
That's
Yeah.
no.
Awful.
Yeah, so you
no.
bleed out eventually. But before we get there, once that happens, you've got nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. Vomiting and diarrhea with blood and mucus, of course. Pink eye, which is a weird thing that happens. And then a pretty gnarly sore throat, guys. Like,
Well, that's my line.
it's
That's
pretty bad.
definitely,
That's
you're joking, but I'd rather be vomiting than have a sore throat.
Yeah, no,
like,
absolutely, 100%.
Oh yeah, I
disagree.
hate it.
Okay,
I-
are we
ugh.
ignoring the blood clot thing right now? Because that's
Yeah, we're just
what
gonna
I'm
move
gonna
right
say
on.
is the worst.
Well, yeah, I think that might be the part that's the worst for me. No, yeah, it's the thing that kills you if you die. Like
Yeah.
once that starts, you've got the secondary symptoms. After that, a rash covers your entire body, starting with your torso, and then it spreads onto your limbs and head.
No.
After that, you start spontaneously bleeding from all of your orifices or any sort of manufactured openings like injection sites or lesions. If any of your internal organs have splits in them, you start bleeding from there. Yeah, once that starts, you're basically a ticking clock until you either bleed out internally, go into shock, or your kidneys shut down and you die.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's the That's the fun part.
So is that the whole episode?
Oh yeah, that's it. Bye, guys.
Sorry, keep going.
Yeah. Another thing that I didn't know about Ebola, because I'm white and live in America, is that there isn't a cure?
Nope.
There isn't, there's treatment, obviously, but there's no medication for this. It's a virus, which I guess makes sense. I should have probably used my big old brain and figured it out. But yeah, there's no cure, and that explains the ridiculously high death rate. Basically,
isn't it like 83 to 90%? Yeah. Maybe?
Yeah, so the general range is 50% to 90%, but for the 2014 one, it was 70%.
Oh my god.
Yup. Basically, if you have it, you just wait it out. You get fluids, electrolytes, and a constant flow of blood and plasma to keep you from bleeding out. And it's apparently also helpful to get transfusions from people who were previously infected who recovered, because that blood already has the antibodies and stuff.
Antibodies.
So, huh?
I said antigens by accident. I meant antibodies by B.
Oh my god, you fool. Get out of our podcast.
Come on.
Also, I want to say on a fun little side note,
Sure.
this is also an RNA virus. Which all of our viruses have been RNA viruses.
And if you don't know what that means, go back and listen to the flu episode.
And you will be sad.
Yeah.
We're all matching with our viruses.
I hate this.
Continue on and get to the racism part, because that's what I
the
know
racism.
a lot
Oh my
about.
god.
Yeah, really good
Olivia.
stuff. Well,
I know, it's going to get really sad before it gets not better at all.
Yeah, so... Okay, so that's pretty much how you recover, if you recover at all. There are also some experimental drugs that have been used on primates, and they were used during the 2014 outbreak that I'm going to be talking about, but the results of those drugs were inconclusive, so shrug, I guess. So, that brings us to March 23rd, 2014. The World Health Organization reported the first cases of the Ebola virus in a rural area of southeastern Guinea. As these first few cases popped into existence, so began the West African Ebola epidemic, which was the largest outbreak of Ebola in the recorded history of the disease. So, patient 0, naturally, had to be the worst of all possible worlds for me because it was an 18-month-old child.
Ugh.
It's always the kids. Always the kids. So, the general consensus is that he was bitten by bats, or a bat. And from there, 5 more cases of what they had dubbed at the time diarrhea-related deaths were reported in the same area in December of 2013. The first official medical alert was issued in January of 2014 to officials only, and then not long after that, the outbreak made its way to the capital city of Guinea, Conakry, I think. I might be butchering that. Slap me if I am. Once it reached the capital, the Ministry of Health issued a warning for an, as of that point, unidentified disease. By the time it was nailed down that it was Ebola virus disease, and was confirmed by the WHO, there had already been 49 confirmed cases and 29 deaths. And that was just in the first month or so. Okay. So, the WHO attributes the rapid spread to poor health fuck me.
How are you doing, buddy?
I'm just so tired. Thank you for asking. Health infrastructure and surveillance systems. But whatever the cause was, the Ebola virus made its way to neighboring countries, Liberia and Sierra Leone. By July, it had spread to the capitals of both. For the first time in history, this is the only time it's ever happened, I didn't know this, an Ebola outbreak had gone beyond rural areas and had spread to densely packed cities that were perfect for transmission. So, in August of that year, the WHO announced that the outbreak was a public health emergency of international concern, hereby known as PHEIC, which basically means that 1, there was a real chance of it spreading to other nations, and or B, that the response required international attention to be contained. Even with that attention, the EVD outbreak saw cases in Italy, the UK, Senegal, Mali, Nigeria, Spain, and, of course, the US. It took years for the outbreak to be contained, and it actually stayed active long after the US stopped paying attention. crowded urban areas, continued travel across borders, and most notably, just the inherent conflict between containment procedures and traditional cultural practices in West Africa made it extremely difficult to control, and that's kind of an understatement. The reason why it lasted 2 years, or at least one of the major reasons why it lasted for 2 years, is that burial rites were extremely hands-on. So anyone who handled the body would get it. Then they would die, and whoever handled that body would get it. And it just went and went and went, you know? So it wasn't until June of 2016 that Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone were announced to be completely Ebola-free. That's the complete run of the outbreak from patient zero to the very end took roughly 2.5 years, saw more than 28,600 cases, and cost roughly 11,325 lives.
Oof.
It's a lot. So when I first heard about the Ebola outbreak, it was the middle of 2014. I was still in high school. I heard the same thing that you guys probably heard, which was that a guy who had traveled from West Africa to Texas had been diagnosed with Ebola and had transmitted it to 2 healthcare workers who had treated him.
Yes.
Yeah. He passed away in October of the year that he arrived and was diagnosed, which started just this crisis in America. And to anyone who wasn't here or wasn't paying attention somehow, it was so sensationalized for about 2 seconds, where everybody was like, I'm gonna get Ebola, and then it became a meme, you know?
Yeah.
And we all watched it through our television screens. The media painted it as just a national crisis, keeping super careful tabs on the people who had known to have contracted it. There was a woman in New York, I think, that was a big deal.
I kind of vaguely remember that. Yeah.
Right, yeah. And the reality of it, I want you guys to guess for me, how many cases were in the U.S.?
I'm going to say 2, 3.
Bree?
Maybe like 10?
Okay, Bree, you're kind of right on the money. 11 cases were contracted by U.S. citizens. 4 of them were developed in the U.S. So 11 people had it in the U.S., but only 4 of them got it in the U.S. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So 6 people brought it over, and then 4 people got it as a result of it.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, and then of those 11, how many of them do you think died?
I'm going to say 5.
Okay.
3?
1.
Oh.
1 of them died.
And that was that dude, the Texas dude.
Yes.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Western medicine.
Yeah, but also, my point here is more that, like, we went crazy. I say we, the U.S. went crazy, like, with this Ebola hype.
Death.
And 1 person died. Not to discount that 1 person died, that's tragic and awful.
Yeah.
But, like, the reality of the situation is that of the Ebola-related deaths during that outbreak, countries outside of Guinea, Sierra Leone, and Liberia accounted for 36 cases total, all of the other countries, and 15 deaths, which was about 0.13% of cases and deaths.
Yeah.
For us, it was a blip on the radar. It was something that I saw turned into memes with the hip youth, and then it was completely forgotten by the time 2015 was over.
Yeah.
Like, I very clearly remember the Halloween costume that was just the Ebola virus.
Yeah.
It was actually, I'm sorry, I'm not playing it up enough. It was sexy Ebola virus.
Oh my God. I cannot. Feminism has come this far, and you won't even recognize Ebola's expression of its sexuality.
I'm so sorry.
God, that is so fucked, though, isn't it?
Slut-shaming Ebola?
That is, honestly, it's so fucked that, like, people died, and we were like,
Sexy Ebola.
Obviously, all we can do is make a Halloween costume out of this and move forward.
Yep.
Can that be the title of the episode? Slut shaming Ebola.
Jesus. Perfect.
Called it. Nice.
I like
nice,
how we
nice.
decide during the episode what.
Well, we'll just decide what's appropriate as we go along.
Perfect.
Yeah, we don't give a fuck. It's our podcast.
Yeah. Shut up, haters. Jesus.
And then it's me in a leather jacket doing a West Side Story snaps.
God, I barely remember the Ebola thing too, but I don't barely remember it because like I wasn't paying attention, but because it was like 2 weeks, you know?
Yeah, no, like the media had it, and then people got better, and then no one cared anymore. And I remember you probably I think you left this in during the flu epidemic episode, where I was like, I don't remember Ebola being that bad, and you were like, yeah, for us.
Yeah.
Because, like...
Sorry.
And no, and it's fine, because, like, I was right there with everybody else where, like, I saw it in my periphery, and then I forgot about it because no one was talking about what was going on abroad. And, people were dying by the thousands, and we just didn't know, but also didn't care, right?
Yeah.
Like... And this is sort of where the racism plays in, and I'm going to touch on this really delicately because obviously all three of us are white, and we benefit from white privilege daily, and can only speak to this from afar, especially because we don't live in Africa and we didn't see what happened.
Yeah.
But for those three countries, especially in West Africa, it was a devastating exercise in national frustration, panic, and death. And what was experienced as a joke in our country and many other countries cost them millions of dollars and thousands of lives. And it's kind of sad and sick that was our reaction to it, especially when the World Health Organization was telling all the countries of the world, hey, this is a crisis. So, worse, Ebola has contributed to hysteria and bigotry in predominantly white communities, being labeled a black disease. That was something that happened a lot.
Oh,
yikes.
American citizens that traveled to any African country, regardless of infection status, were immediately put on leaves from their jobs. They were quarantined needlessly. It became like some Heart of Darkness bullshit really fast, where it was like, it was really effective at othering Africa all over again, as if it needed it. And Ebola was suddenly a stand-in for every other xenophobic placeholder we've ever seen, you know? And it was 2016. Not to say that it's any better now, but you know, like you don't expect to see shit like that in 2016, right? Yeah. But I do want to end on one news story that I did read at the time. And I remember reading it at the time, and I was so impressed, as if I can speak to being impressed by anything medical. But it was so amazing, and I'm going to close on this because it's kind of a long-ish story. In late 2014, there was a 22-year-old girl. Her name was Fatou Kekula, and she found herself the only healthy member of her family, as her mother, father, sister, and cousin contracted Ebola all at once. So, it started when her father went to the hospital for a spike in blood pressure. It was just a regular thing. Like, that happens here. Yeah. People get high blood pressure. They went to the hospital to get it checked out. Unbeknownst to him or the rest of the family, the bed that he stayed in was empty only because the previous patient had died from... Any guesses? Anyone?
Ebola.
Yeah. So, not long after he was admitted, his father started developing all of those fun symptoms we talked about earlier. And not long after that, the hospital was shut down because nurses started dying of Ebola. So, the staff eventually sent Fatou and her father home, telling her that he had contracted typhoid and that they couldn't do anything for him.
No.
So, they sent him on his way. You know, nurses were dying, so there wasn't really anything they could do to help anyone at that point. The hospital shut down, they went home, and upon returning home, her father spread his, as of that point, undiagnosed Ebola to his wife, his second daughter, and their nephew.
Oh.
So, Fatou was a nursing student, she might be a nurse at this point, I haven't, yeah. She was the only able-bodied household member left. She took on all the responsibility of caregiver and just household management, She developed her own method for staying out of contact with her sick family's infection while also administering medication, IVs with fluids, changing their bedding, dressing, etc. She called it the trash bag method, and it goes a little something like this. First, she would put a trash bag tied up to the calves on both legs, and then she would put rubber boots over those, and then put another trash bag over each boot and tie it. And then she would wrap her hair in a pair of stockings, and then she would put a trash bag over that. And then she would put on a heavy raincoat and seal it. And then she would put 4 pairs of gloves on each hand,
Yeah.
and then a mask over her face.
Yeah.
And she would repeat that every single day, religiously, until the illness cleared.
Yeah.
So, does anybody remember what I said the fatality rate of Ebola was at the time?
50 to 70?
50 to 90%.
50 to 90, yeah. And
Yeah,
for this
50 to
one, it was 70.
Yeah.
70% in this case, and that's in modern medical facilities in...
Yeah.
Yeah, right? This is a 22-year-old girl with no access to medical equipment at all. She had to go and, like, do this shit herself. How many of those 4 family members do you think survived?
I want to say
0.
all of them.
You do, don't you? Unfortunately, her cousin was 15 years old. He did not make it. I would like to think that if he were older, that he would have, because most of the people who contracted and died from Ebola, I think it was some like 20 to 25% of the people who died were kids. So, yeah, it's always fucking kids. But yeah, the cousin did not survive, but her mother, father, and sister all did. That's a survival rate of 75%.
Fuck yeah, dude.
I don't think I need to go, like, really drive home how insane that is. Especially given what she had to
Yeah.
work with. Her local doctor wouldn't go to her house.
Yeah. Yeah.
She had to get advice over the phone and pick up medications from the clinic herself. And then she developed her own method for not coming into contact with any bodily fluids. Also, I just want to point out that this is a very, very messy disease. This is not
Yeah.
something that, it's not like the flu where you, like, waddle to the bathroom and then have your bout of diarrhea and then go back to bed. You are constantly in your own filth because you cannot control your body. You're too weak to move. She had to clean up 4 for the most part, family members' bodily fluids every single day and not contract a highly contagious disease.
Fucking
This
go
is the,
her.
Right? This is the kind of thing that goes beyond miraculous. She's a goddamn hero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Like, I don't know. I was so amazed when I heard it back then, and then when I read about it for real, I was like, this woman is amazing. She's so cool.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the 3 that survived went on to talk about it, and she was a nursing student at the time, and I think she went back to school in 2016 once the virus cleared up. And I think she's a nurse now. But yeah,
her.
the whole thing is nightmare fuel from start to finish. But my God, this girl is Fatu Kekula is a hero, and
Yeah, also,
I think her method, her trash bag method,
it's so effective.
they started using it, like she taught it to other people who didn't have access to medical
Yeah.
centers in West Africa, and I think that's amazing because it helped
Yeah.
so many people, helped save lives. She's a hero. My God, I'm gonna cry.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, I remember too when they had like literally hazmat suits and people who were
Yeah.
wearing the hazmat suits got sick because you
Isn't
have to
that
be
insane?
so careful with like how you take them off.
Right.
So just the fact that worked is like it's insane to me.
Yeah,
It's incredible.
survival rate of 75%, and she didn't get sick at all.
Fuck, dude, that's nice.
Yeah. I wanted to end on a lighter note. I didn't want to end at, and then racism, the end, you know?
Well, I have some more racism.
Oh, good. I want to hear
really
more about the
fully-
racism.
So essentially, when I was a freshman in college, I had the incredible opportunity to go to a research conference, which are generally very expensive. I got to go for free because I was chaperoning for my high school. It was a very nice opportunity. I'm very appreciative of it.
Nice, okay.
And so essentially the
feeling there's
research
a but
conference,
there.
it's called, I forget the abbreviation, but it's a bioethics conference. Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's PRIM and R is like the abbreviation. but it is a big hub for medical professionals, researchers, and like common people to get together and talk about medical research, developments, bioethics. It was really unique for me because I feel like as somebody that's in science, you rarely think about the people that you are treating. You're thinking about the data. And not, maliciously. It's just, when I'm reading data analytics all day, like, and I'm not really interacting with the human beings.
Right, yeah.
Kind of hard to get a perspective on, like, what's going on. So there's a guy there who... Okay, let me start a little back. That year, so that's had to be 2016, was a really big year because essentially a few years before, the Ebola crisis happened at the worst possible time. As far as bioethics goes, because I believe it was at the beginning of the second bout of the Obama administration. What happened was somebody was researching medical papers for infectious diseases like syphilis or something, and they came across this paper that nobody had tried to hide, where essentially the U.S. had funded clinics to go down to South America, I believe Bolivia in particular, or Chile or Bolivia, I don't remember, and we did not disclose to patients that they had contracted STDs to see the symptoms.
You know what? I heard about that.
Right.
Yeah.
And we let that happen for decades and then ended up never treating them and then left. And this I believe the qualifier for this was like the 60s, right? So this was published, filed, put away. Nobody found it until somebody was looking up primary data and they were like, wow, what the fuck is this, right?
Yeah, of course.
And so that also, like, when that was released, it was after, I believe when we were looking for Saddam Hussein, we set up fake vaccination clinics where we did vaccinate people, but we drew a little bit of their blood, and we used that to find his family. So that, combined with the South American thing,
ethics,
created a great mistrust of Western medicine in the developing world.
Sure.
Which, yeah.
And that's not even including other stuff like the Tuskegee thing.
Right, yeah.
Where they didn't disclose to male participants that they'd contracted, I think it was syphilis.
I almost did that for my cover-up.
Yeah. I believe it was syphilis. Was it syphilis?
Was.
Yeah. They didn't tell men that they contracted syphilis and then recorded the symptoms for decades without treating them. That was in America, but it was against literally only black men. I think there was a handful of black women. It was the black community.
It was just, yeah.
So all of that combined had like come out and been addressed around. Oh no, it had to be the first. Maybe okay. It was like 2013, 2014. All of this information came out. It was in the public sphere. There was a great mistrust of Western medicine, and so two big things kind of combined that exacerbated the Ebola crisis. One. When the Ebola crisis came out, obviously the clear indicator that things were being spread is that they were performing burial rites where you were in direct contact with a dead body that was highly infectious.
Right.
That was very religiously and culturally significant to them. And then you have white doctors come in and say, you can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Even if it's correct, you still have white people coming in and telling you that something that's religiously significant to you, you can't do that anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, how? Yeah.
I don't want to say that I don't get it. Like, I totally get it. It's...
Right? Like, with the contact, and it's also, too, they don't know what a virus is. Like, right? Like, that's the big issue with treating HIV, too, is right? You go into this thing, and it's like, you're a white doctor, and you're like, I have all the information on HIV works, I'm going to explain to you how it works. One, they probably don't trust you, which I totally understand.
Yeah, of course not.
Two, they don't have the medical know-how to, like, they don't know what a virus is. So you're saying, like, it makes the virus spread. They're like, I don't know what that is. General distrust. They believe that Western medicine is used deliberately to poison people in the developed world. They've had really poor experiences with availability of medicine and pharmaceuticals. There's a lot of myths around there that HIV was planted in Africa to wipe out the black population. I'm sure that was also going around with Ebola. That was very common. So that's like the context culturally in which this disease happened. So essentially, we're kind of at an impasse of like, obviously people in the developed world are going to have the highest volume of medical supplies and research to help you, right? Like these were happening in very poor rural climates. The government didn't have the funds and the resources to help everyone that they needed to, because, well, we can't unpack that today. They were kind of fucked. It's like, you need help of other like developed countries that have these surplus resources. People were unwilling to take them. And also, I mean, like completely understandable why they were unwilling to take them. Like, it's not even like, oh, I can't believe it. It's like, I understand why they would not want to take our medicine. For sure. And so essentially there was a guy that was presenting it, and I went to his talk because he was presenting a poster board, and it looked super interesting to me. So I went to his hour-long panel. And so essentially he worked for, I forget which specific government he worked for, but he was working for a government agency, and they had developed the Ebola vaccine really quickly. I believe it was like a couple months. I recall it was an expedited process, but they developed an Ebola vaccine that, to my recollection, is anywhere from like 73 to 100% effective. And so they were trying to get people to, one, accept the vaccine, and two, understand that they cannot come into contact with the dead bodies. It will spread it. It's something that needs to stop during this outbreak. And now the guy who was presenting this, he was from that country, right? And so he was working with a team that, is from that country, can relate to them on a peer-to-peer level. And even then they had trouble trusting him because, he was from the capital city and he's working, with the government. And it's funny, he said, while we're driving to these really poor cities and these really poor villages, on the radio, you'd hear them on the radio talking about, don't take the Ebola shot. It has HIV in it. It's going to make you more sick. It's just poison. And then he had to show up there and be like, hey, it's actually not bad. There are posters everywhere in these small villages that if you accept the Ebola vaccine, you're going to die.
Yeah, I got to see a couple of those while I was doing research.
Yeah, and it's just, it's a lot of it misinformation. They didn't trust Western medicine. They didn't trust the government. They didn't trust, the resources. They didn't trust people coming into them not knowing anything about them whatsoever and telling them they can't do something that's religiously important to them. And he said it took a couple months. They were able to get vaccinations up. Essentially, the way that they did is through education. So they led these workshops and, they had to get on board with all the shamans and the priests of the town. So once they convinced those people, hey, I know this is of religious significance. I know this is important to you, but you need to stop doing this. You need to work with us or people are going to continue to die. Once they were the leaders, they were the pillars of the community. Once the shaman said, hey, these people are okay, people usually flocked with them. And it took months and months and months of education on what a virus is, on how viruses spread, on how the vaccine works. And that's why, Ebola eventually did go away. They began slowly, cutting out on things that caused spread and accepting more resources. But what was so saddening about that lecture is how much conscious effort that government had to do to undo what we had done in the past.
Right, yeah.
Which is just so fucked up. Because, like, I can understand the argument for the Saddam Hussein one, was we were trying to catch a terrorist. I understand where they're coming from, but we
created that terrorist, too, so...
Yeah, and just not realizing the implications that had. Like, that was in the Middle East, but that is something that they don't go to vaccination clinics because they don't trust who's providing those vaccinations. Like, yeah, we killed a dude, but fuck, they don't, like... The developing world doesn't trust vaccinations. That's a big deal.
Yeah, it sure is.
And I'm so happy that he was successful. But it's not a unique experience. This is incredibly common for this to happen. I mean, nobody gave a shit about HIV until it infected, straight white people. Like, even when it was in Africa, nobody gave a shit. When it was
it had been in Africa forever.
Yeah, it's been in Africa for decades. Nobody gave a shit. Came to America and gay people got it. People didn't really care unless they knew them. And then, people who were getting it through like blood transfusions, they were like, well, now we have to do something about this.
Right.
And like, this isn't unique. Like, I actually almost did the plague for funsies.
Yeah.
And while I was researching it, there was a plague epidemic in Madagascar in 2014 where several thousand people died from the plague. But it didn't happen here, so nobody gave a shit, right? And like, my understanding
I didn't even hear about that.
Yeah, I didn't hear about it either. I was watching like a documentary or something, and in like 2014, a couple people got sick with the plague. There were all the warning signs. The government was warned, like, these are the steps that you need to take to prevent an epidemic. So it was 2014 that the government was warned. The research was available. 2 years later, several thousand people died in 2016. Because the rats were carrying it. They said, you need to do euthanization programs. You need to isolate people. Somebody from Vice actually did it. You can look it up. There's like a Vice documentary. And like, it was funny because the documentarian, he had to go to the doctor beforehand and say, I'm going to a country that has plague. What do I do? And I think they vaccinated him and they gave him a shitload of like antivirals and antibiotics to take the entire time that he was there in order to make sure he didn't get the plague. And they advised him to not go, which I get, but then how are you supposed to treat people if you're told to not help them? Like,
yeah. There was a lot of that with Ebola, too, where people, it became, those 3 countries especially, but every country in Africa became, don't go unless you have to kind of thing. There's a word for that, but I'm forgetting what it is. You just, like, were advised not to go anywhere near Africa.
And also, 'cause. Like, the reason that, things were so quickly addressed in the U.S. is, like, we don't have any drugs for it, but, like, it's very easy to quarantine in the U.S., right? Like, oh, shit, this person is exhibiting symptoms, complete quarantine, all these people are on lockdown. We have the resources for it. We have the machines to help them. We have the antibiotics. We have the fluids.
Right.
In Africa, it's like, oh, shit, one of my family members got it. I mean, I guess we die now because the doctor refuses to come to my house, which is super common. The doctors were like, oh, I don't want to get sick. And it's like, well, then what the fuck are we supposed to do?
Right? Like, and I get it. Like, it's terrifying, especially when the hospitals are closed down because, shocker, everyone's dying from Ebola. But, like, then everybody's just on their own.
Well, that's all that in a bag of chips. That is a lot of racism and a lot of sadness. I mean, that's that. Okay, so I guess this transitions us to like unpacking the entire series.
Right.
So the one I always ask, how did this series change you? I'll go first.
Yeah, go for it.
Since I asked the question. I mean, the influenza one was actually, it did change me because I knew it was scary, but I knew from like a biological perspective why it was scary, right? I knew this is why it mutates. This is the structure of the disease. Yada, 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 yada.
Right, of course.
All of these, I had an understanding of the biological aspect. But to hear the human experience of it is very different. So, gosh, the influenza one was so hard because I really don't know if I articulated enough how difficult it was to find firsthand accounts of this because nobody wrote about it.
Yeah, you mentioned.
But that was difficult because it was essentially, I was extrapolating stories from statistics because nobody was writing about it. But if 95% of a small village in Alaska dies, like that's not a pleasant experience.
No, that story kind of tells itself.
Right, and so that was difficult, but I feel like that really drove home because when I explain like the biological aspect, people are still like, okay, well, like I don't really understand why it's such a big deal, but like when you tell the firsthand stories, you're like, oh shit, that's a lot of people, right?
Sure is.
The HIV one was also very real because when I saw the Dallas Buyers Club, I've never seen it before, so like I didn't actually anticipate what it was going to be about. If I'll be honest with you, the only reason I watched it is because on Big Mouth he says, let's watch the Dallas Buyers Club and not think about AIDS, and so then I watched it and I thought about AIDS the whole time because I was really sad.
I'm thinking about AIDS.
Andrew,
It's a movie about AIDS.
I'm thinking about AIDS.
Oh,
But I mean, like the hardest part for the HIV one was because I was coming at it from the research standpoint.
Sure.
I am very aware in my own capabilities that I will never be able to do clinical research. Mostly because, Jennifer Gardner in that movie, when he says, like, I need medication, you've given me 30 days to live and I want to live. And she goes, the only thing that I can do for you is put you on a clinical trial and there's a 50-50 shot that you're not going to get the drug. And he's like, so there's a 50-50 chance you're just going to let me die. And you're like...
Pretty much.
And, like, that's what's so hard about that, is because that crisis was, like, a demand to expedite research, which, like, on one hand, I totally get. On the other hand, it must have been incredibly difficult as a researcher to say, you're either going to get the drug and it'll do something, you're going to get the drug and it's going to do nothing and you're going to die, or you're going to get a sugar pill. And none of these things are, like...
Yeah.
pleasant for me as a researcher.
Yeah, bad options all around.
But also, like, what was so hard is, like, the implications of expediting a research project and it going poorly, but we don't give it enough time, is equally bad. Like, AZT has horrible side effects.
Right.
That was the one that we expedited the research for. It was a chemotherapy drug. It's very hard on your body. I can't imagine somebody taking it long term will have really great benefits from it. But that was the one that we expedited. And my biggest fear too is, all of these drugs are going to be incredibly expensive, right? Like inherently in how, pharmaceuticals work. I don't know if I could live with myself as a researcher if I expedited the research process to patent and provide a drug that I'm not even sure is going to effectively save someone's life. Like, putting the drug out there, like, I think Dallas Buyers Club, I looked up all of the meds he was taking, and one of the medications, I think one worked fine, and I was like, okay, that's a really common one. The other one he was taking was, like, a protein, like an injectable protein. They found decades later doesn't do much to prevent HIV spread and everything, which was devastating to me because it means people were spending thousands and thousands of dollars on this protein treatment that wasn't going to save them. And that was hard for me because that's my choices as a researcher directly impacting somebody's ability to live.
Yeah.
That actually, for like 3 days after we recorded that podcast, really fucked me up because this is essentially what I'm going into, and I don't know if I could deal with the real person repercussions of, like, if I don't do my job well, people die. Like, that's really hard for me to think about. And then the Ebola one is really sad because it's like, I can do my job the best that I can, but it's only going to work if people accept it. Like, all of it is just, it bums me out. Like, I don't know, I'm coming at it as a researcher. I just want to help people live, and I want to save people's lives. And, like, if I go too fast to save lives, I could kill people. If I go too slow, I could kill people, and then I could do the best work in the world, and if people don't accept it, it doesn't matter. That's weighed really, really heavily on me for the past couple of weeks. So that's what's changed in me as a person.
Next time on Things That Keep Me Up at Night, Olivia completely changes career paths because of a thing we talked about.
So that's what bummed me out a lot about these series. It's just, I just want to help people. And I think most scientists want to help people. And, we're doing our best, except for the bad ones. They're not doing their best.
They're not.
Brooke, how did you grow as a person?
How did I grow as a person? I became a more scared person.
Mood.
Dude, I joke, actually, but that might be the thing that I took away from this, is that, like, man, if it goes to hell in a handbasket, there's not a whole lot we can do. Like, just looking at these 3 different RNA viruses alone. Never mind everything else that's out there. Yeah. If something happens that we're not prepared for, even with all the advances in medicine and everything that we've got going for us right now, if we're not prepared for it, everybody's gonna die. And I try not to think about it, but whenever we record these episodes and for like 24 to 48 hours after, I'm just like looking around and like, God, this is all so fragile. Like,
Oh, that is so accurate. Like the 24
not
to 48
funny.
hours after this are so hard.
this is not like a positive, good old radio show moment, but like, my lord, everything that we have hinges on things going exactly the way that we expect them to.
I got chills.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's...
Oh,
So that's my takeaway. Bree,
Yeah.
what have you got?
So like I said in my episode that my personal research for this week was the hardest research for me to do.
Yeah.
Out of all of them, AIDS is a pretty just sad, horrific topic in general.
Yeah.
Let alone just like in this series, right?
Yeah.
Put it mildly.
So when I heard Olivia's, right, the thing that came to mind was choices.
Yeah.
In the sense that, we can only do much as a community to publish medical research and practice good science and good like quarantine practices and do everything that we can to stop viruses. But there were certain choices made that weren't great, like the mayor having the parade.
Yeah, just have a parade. It's fine. What could go wrong?
And granted, it was early on, so they didn't know a lot about it.
Yeah.
Sure.
But that's not really an excuse. It was about choices that a lot of people's lives could be saved through that.
Yeah.
Also, by getting your flu shot,
Yeah.
And then, like, when it moved on to my episode, it was the government just ignoring a whole community of people
Yeah.
because they were gay. And it wasn't until people were having blood transfusions or infants were dying that the government actually started paying attention. And not to mention the fact that it was happening in other countries at the time, and we only started paying attention when it was happening in the good old US of A.
Yeah.
Go on.
And then with Brooke's episode,
Woo.
it was like, it was a meme. People made Halloween costumes out of this virus that killed
that's
people.
the thing that I wanted to really focus on, is that it just didn't matter here. Like,
Yeah, no, and so that's the thing, is it's choices to what we pay attention to and what we're going to put in our time in our research. And so I think that the thing that keeps me up most at night is, because viruses are always going to be around. There's never going to be a point where we can solve everything medically. It's just impossible.
Yeah.
There's never going to be a point where we can predict everything. We're always going to have to live with that, which is something I'm fine with living with. It's scary.
I'm
but
not.
It's fine. But like that's just science. Like we can't change that, right? But the thing that really keeps me up at night, I guess, is the fact that just humans' responses to it.
Yeah.
And I think that, especially with mine, I'm biased towards mine.
Yeah.
But for AIDS, it's just like the fact that a whole government didn't want to be seen as, gay or like favoring the gays.
Jesus.
So they let thousands of people die. And I think that by getting your flu shot, going to the doctor, and not being a prideful person and saying, oh, this happens to everybody else but not for me, is the most bullshit and egotistical thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
Not to mention the fact that you're directly putting your entire community in danger.
Yeah.
And I know this sounds over dramatic
But
or
it's
whatever,
not.
because it's like, oh, it's just a flu shot, but it really is fucking not. And people who choose to not give their children vaccines.
Selfish.
Or,
Sorry. I
Suck
really
my
have
dick.
nothing to say other than selfish.
Suck my dick.
Yeah, it's like, I think that you need to understand that one faulty study that was done by a scientist who said that all of it was faulty to get the type of research that he wanted, the results he wanted, is now disbanded from the community.
Also, side note, fun fact, Andrew Wakefield was trying to publish a competing MMR vaccine.
Oh, you can fuck yourself.
Yeah. So he was
yeah.
trying to discredit one of them and sell his.
And for anybody who doesn't know what we're referring to, it's the study that said that vaccines cause autism. Yeah.
It's not, yeah.
And so, also the fact that you'd rather have your kid dying and sick and die at an early age and have autism
That's
is
the thing
disgusting.
that just blows my mind. Is people are like, it causes
we
it causes
can make another
autism.
episode out of this.
Jesus, right?
Yeah, I think. Sorry,
This will be
I
another
go off on this.
episode. Yeah.
Yeah, it's but
My
what
audio
I'm
peaked
trying
when
to
I
say,
said that.
guess-
Jesus.
Yeah. What I guess I'm trying to say is that I think it's about choices,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of things that we can't control, but the things that we can control, we better fucking control, because it's affecting everyone around you.
Yeah.
And I will get mad at you if I don't find out that you have your flu shot.
You hear that,
Ryan,
everybody?
I'm talking to you.
You hear that? If you don't get your flu shot, Bree's gonna fly to your house and yell at you.
I'll come.
I would too,
I'll
bitch.
come and
That's
I'm
the
fucking
TTK
Ubering
me
it
up
there, alright? You'll
guarantee.
see me in 20 minutes.
Olivia, does your boyfriend, did he get the flu shot? You made him,
Oh,
I'm sure.
absolutely. They have it free at his work. So
Oh,
literally you
Jesus.
just walk up and they just give it to everybody in the building. And so
that's
he has
fine.
it.
Do you know they're paying people? They're paying people to get their flu shot now?
Yeah, they give
get
you like
$5
free
at
food
some
and money
pharmacies.
some places.
Please.
God.
I'm
Also, the other day,
begging.
as like a side note, and this like really resonated with me, I was talking with a friend about this, and she's done a lot of internships in hospitals, and she had gotten her flu shot because in UCLA, like in our next to our Bruin Walk, which is the most like populated area of campus, they set up a massive booth with like multiple desks. You could get your flu shot in less than a minute for completely free, as long as you were a UCLA student. So she was like walking to class, and she's like, "Oh fuck yeah, got it done. 30 seconds, walked away, done." Right? And she said like, honestly, it's like it's so easy. It's
Yeah,
almost
why not?
always free. And she said, and honestly, at the end of the day, it's like if I got the flu, I could live, right? Like I'm a
Yeah.
healthy adult. Flu's as it is, I could go to a hospital, worst case scenario, I'm going to be fine. But you know who's not going to
Well,
be
and
fine?
also-
The autoimmune deficient people, children,
The elderly.
like the elderly. And she's like, and to me, it is so selfish in my mind that you can't handle possibly getting a small cold and your arm being kind of sore and putting other people at risk for dying. She said it's honestly just one of the most selfish things that I could put in my head. And it's like, it really
Well, and
resonated
also-
with me because they've made it so easy. They've made it borderline free.
Yeah, there's
and
no
your
reason not
decision
to.
to not get your flu shot,
It's-
direct, like, and it's honestly, it's on par with electing to not use a condom. If you elect to not use a
Yeah.
condom, you know what, you might or might not get it, but you know who else you're possibly not helping? Anyone you come into contact with sexually.
Right.
Like, you're making an active choice
Choices.
to make yourself not safe and everyone else that you come into contact with not safe.
It's all about choices. And I think also too
Choices.
the whole getting sick, oh, I always get super sick. No, you don't. It is impossible to make it last more than 2 to 3 days. There's no actual fucking case that said it has lasted 2 to 3 more days. So you're bullshit.
well, you don't
actually-
actually get like ill. You don't like get the flu. People always say like, I got the flu immediately after getting the flu shot. It's like, okay, well, if
No.
you
You get
did, you
mildly
already
cold.
had it.
Also, if you look, when you sign it, all of the flu vaccines are dead flu vaccines, which means that the
Right.
virus is completely inert and you can't get ill. The only people that can't get it, I think, are people that have egg allergies because they cultivate the virions in eggs. Fun fact. But yeah, I mean, like, I can't defend you. Can't defend your choices here. All about freedom
Nah,
of
bro.
choice,
Yeah.
but like your election to not use condoms and to not use a flu vaccine is tantamount to putting other people at risk for death. Like,
Yeah, nah, dog.
Right.
You're that's
not
on you.
about it. So
Nope.
on that note, a light one, we've potentially alienated a lot of our viewers, made some people angry. If you're angry at us, leave us some iTunes reviews. We
You
would
can
like to
you can say whatever you want as long as you rate us 5 stars.
5 stars. Yeah, we'll read it if it's 5 stars.
Yes.
We have one or two that we wanted to read if you wanted to read
Hell yeah.
it for us.
Yes, we got one from user Rachel_Linda. I can only assume
Fucking
her name.
love Rachel.
is
She's
Rachel
my kind
Linda.
of people. Shout out to you, Rachel. Be my
Thank
friend.
you, Rachel. It says, fun and informative. Got drunk and recapped the influenza episode to everyone who would listen to me. Clearly informative. Thank you, Rachel
I
Linda.
love her. Rachel, I love you so much. I would talk to you at a
Rachel
party.
is my
Same.
hero.
Love Rachel.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then we got another review, but it wasn't like a... It was a rating, but not a review. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
whoever that was, thank you so much. We appreciate
Yes.
it. 5 stars for
thanks.
us.
And
a gold star for you.
I'm so excited we get to talk about this.
Okay.
We placed like number 4 on
Oh my
like
god, yes!
growing podcasts on Stitcher.
Yes, top movers. We were number 4. It was
It's
insane.
such a big deal. It literally I cannot exaggerate. Every single day when we like peaked in listens and downloads, every time Brooke would be like, we have like 98 downloads, and I'd go, what the fuck is happening right now?
Yeah, we were so confused.
I think I said at some point, I refuse to be excited until somebody tells me what's going on.
Well, it was so weird because like
Ashton?
it was we were like, where is Ashton Kutcher? Where's the cameras? But I was so confused because a lot of the ones we were getting were from Stitcher, and like up until that point, we had only really gotten a handful of downloads from Stitcher. Yeah. So I just happened to go on their website, and on their top movers list, we were right on their front page.
We're taking this moment because we want to say how appreciative we are.
Yes.
This means so much to us. It's made me feel so bubbly. Honestly, thank you for listening to us, and
thank you.
You know, really
and also,
mean a lot.
Let us know what you think. We're more active on Twitter these days than we are on Instagram, but we are trying to keep up with everything. Just drop us a line. Let us know what you want to hear. If you have suggestions.
I would like to fucking hear? I want you to let me know if you got your flu shot, because I cannot begin to explain to you how much that would make my day. Like, if somebody was like, hey, I never got the flu shot before, and I got it because of you, I think I'd cry. I think I would actually cry.
I'll do a Twitter poll and see how many people got their flu shot. So follow us on Twitter and let Olivia know if you got your flu shot because of her, because you want to make her happy, right?
Because if you don't want to make me happy. But yeah, I just wanted to say that because it's a little bit of a humble brag, but also very appreciative, means a lot. Honestly, didn't even think we would make it this far because I'm very nervous. I'm an anxious Annie, if you will.
Yeah, an anxious Annie.
I'm proud of
and
us.
one more announcement for all you people who get excited about guest stars. Next week, we will be recording an episode. It's going to be kind of a glorified mini-sode that's going to reflect more of the heavy hitter content with none other than animator and host of Oh No, Ross and Carrie, Mr. Ross Blotcher himself. I'm going to do that again because I don't want to fuck up his name. Mr. Ross Blotcher himself.
I'm so excited.
It's going to be awesome. Their show is amazing.
My dog just borked.
Your dog just borked?
Yeah, I was too high-pitched. She got freaked out.
Jesus Christ.
She's excited for Ross, too, is what I'm
Everybody's
trying to say.
excited for Ross, even the dog. But yeah, their show is through the Maximum Fun Network, and their stuff is hilarious if you want to go check them out. They're on iTunes and everything else as well.
It's gonna
We love them. And we might have Carrie on later. We'll have to
Things
go
are
back and
going
forth.
good for us, guys.
They are.
So...
I love this.
Also, can I just make a quick note? Is my roommate hanging up a painting? Maybe.
I hear something.
Are they drilling into the wall?
What is Bree's roommate doing?
Guys, I'm moving houses soon, so my audio quality is going to be a lot better, and I won't be in this tent anymore.
Yeah. It'll be good, dudes. It'll be good.
Oh, man. Everything's coming together. I'm so proud of you.
Well, guys, no other announcements. We said the iTunes review thing.
Yeah, I think
thanked
that might
people.
be it.
We Twittered.
Leave us more. Contact us on Twitter. I'm never on social media. I should be, though, for this podcast. I just don't understand technology whatsoever.
No, if they listen to any of these episodes, they're fully aware of that.
Yeah, they know. It's fine.
Today I found out that you can search in the little bar.
God, that was so funny. I was
What
like,
she means
Bree,
is when
open
you
your
open
control
your computer,
panel.
there's like a little magnifying glass, and you can search in it. And she's like,
Yeah.
wow, you can find things easier on here
What
through
do you
that.
know?
I thought it was a fun and helpful tip, so I shared it with the group, and then I got scrutinized.
You also got scrutinized for wanting to fuck Goatman, so...
Yeah.
I do not. Can I make that clear? I do not want to fuck Goat.
Goat fucker,
I
goat
heard-
fucker, goat fucker.
I heard over 6 feet, and I got a little prematurely excited. Oh God. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't. Not like. That never happened to me. We can end it. We can end it. We can end it.
Absolutely not. This is in. This is our show, ladies and gentlemen.
Anyway, on that note, guys, it has been real.